Te tauihu o te waka a Māori is the jewel in the crown of Te Waipounamu. Rich with opportunity, it has always drawn people towards it. From the very first settlements of our eastern Polynesian tupuna to the waves of migration that followed, people have always come, bringing with them change, knowledge, and new ideas to the ever-evolving face of this rohe.
All of these trees around here that were planted in the mid-80s, late 80s, there are different types. Rewa rewa, pahutakawa, kōwhai, tāne-kaha. I guess they're a bit of a metaphor for the nature of how this marae has always been. The mana of this place has been held by many, many different people, some who don't whakapapa to this region. It's really important for us as a community to acknowledge those people who have contributed to the success and also the continuation of the community itself. What they bring and what they uphold has been critical in terms of the mātauranga. You know, my first kapahaka teacher, she was Ngāti Parau. You know, my first reo teacher, she was Te Raroa. So they're not mana whenua here, but they bring mana to the whenua.
The Nelson Tasman rohe is known as the centre of Aotearoa and the fastest growing region in Te Waipounamu. For centuries before Pākehā settlement, this area was a vibrant hub of self-sufficient Māori communities. Today, there is a drive to reconnect whānau to the ancestral knowledge of how to live well off the land.
Whānau, yeah, so you can see the clearing over there, eh? I reckon we just go 2 guns up, 2 spotters, so we can identify that later on, but then the majority just had to be a bound back, I reckon.
Our kaupapa is called he kai ke akuringa, which means to provide kai and food by my own hands, whether that be through tāne mahuta or tangaroa.
Generally they'll graze on the edges around this time, but if they're down the bottom, they're only going to go one way, and that's back up. So as they're moving up, you know, just take that tactical pause, have a breath, you know, and obviously when you are guiding, just making sure that the deer ain't going to run in front, you know, of us.
Grew up predominantly in Papakura.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My childhood, I wasn't really in a good environment, you know, like a teenager, eh? Just being up to no good in that, you know. I realised that I've got no family. Once I leave school, I've got nowhere to go. Jumped in this gateway class and I just knuckled down and got my NCA credits to get into the army. The army taught me so much. I've put 17 years into this army, and every year has been like full devotion and dedication to the cause. COVID hit us, so rethink like what's most important in life. And it was whānau, but in order for that to happen is time. Time will never get back.
And there's like one thing I can see, it's either a stump or a deer.
So we thought, change lifestyle and get out of the unit and try and find somewhere where we can build a relationship with each other, with my kids, with my wife. Te Tauihu was perfect for it.
There's seen a stag. Oh, 3 deer, 1 stag. So we probably want to go up there with the gun. Yeah.
We started about 4 years ago. We just thought with the skills that we have, we're able to support people by giving them the mātauranga or the skills to gather kai by themselves. With that comes the connection, you know, like we walk into a supermarket and we see the prices of meat at like $30 a kg, you know, and it just stuns me. We live so close to our resources that our ancestors used to connect to the ngahere and the moana, but we're so disconnected in the space of ngā whakangau te puaka me tia me ika. Yeah, trying to bring them back to the connection and the respect of their ancestors of survivability. Do you know how to skin, cuz? We'll get you to show you these ones how to skin, eh? Anyone can run a hunting kaupapa, eh? And anyone can take life, you know. But I think the main thing that I would like to get across to them is everything in this world has a reason to live on this planet. We are just fortunate that we're the most dominant species on this planet. If you understand the circle of life and what actually keeps us alive on this earth, then hopefully they build a deeper connection.
For generations untold, the tides of mohua carried the lifeblood of intertribal trade. Waka gliding from every corner of Aotearoa into its sheltered arms. And still in the gentle rhythms of kai tere tere, the wairua of whanaungatanga endures. He taonga tuku iho alive in every breeze and wave.
Tangaro ki uta, hine moana, ki tai, kai taratare, ki uta, kai taratare ki tai. Whakapiri mai, whakatata mai, whakatata mai.
The kaupapa today is Waka Te Tasman. We've been running this event since 2000, so 24 years now. Our Motueka Waka Ama Club are the haukainga that hold the event here and the rohi of Ngāti Rāroa and Te Atiawa, so under the kurawai.
Make your way along the coast. Everyone's going to head out that way. You'll see the first buoy here and the small boat leading. You're going to do a right-hand turn around that and head on down. The rest of you guys in the tent car are going to aim towards the islands.
We love this so much. This event is on the calendar for people. We have teams coming year after year after year. And Te Waipounamu is the largest waka event. We have teams this year from all over Te Waipounamu. We've got paddlers from the North Island, and we've even got a couple of paddlers from Hawaii and a team from Mooloolaba. We're not from here. So I grew up in Matamata and I connect with iwi from the Waikato. Todd's Ngāti Rau Kawa ki Otaki. Coming down here, we are in the rohi of the iwi of Te Tauihu. So our role here is to really uplift the mana of the people here. It is really uplifting for us to be looking out and seeing so many paddling whānau and so many waka. So there's this beautiful, I suppose, whanaungatanga in our waka ama community. So the wairua of the day, yeah, it's having fun together. But off the water, you know, we're mates. Not on the water though, we're not mates, no.
Whakatū Marae, nestled in the heart of Nelson, began as a dream, one that took many years and many hands to bring to life. Its development unfolded in stages. A kohanga reo rose on the whenua in the mid-1980s. the Wharenui opened its doors in 1995, and a decade later, the Wharekai followed. Yet beyond the physical growth lies a quieter, deeper aspiration, reconnecting whānau and the hapori with mātauranga tuku iho.
So Te Wharetuto o Aotearoa is the National School for Ancient Māori Weaponry, and it was started by our tumu whakarai, Papa Peter Sharples, back in 1983.
All right, kapa. How many minutes late were we? Rima? 10? All right. Rima? All right, 50 squats, eh?
I got introduced to Te Wharetuto in 2003. So I was only 17. In Pōneke, where I grew up, there was very limited spaces and limited chances to learn anything te ao Māori. When I was about 14 or 15, like most adolescents, get into a little bit of mischief. So for me, before my journey in Mauraka and my journey in Te Reo, really started with me having to live with my Māori teacher, who took me in under her wing. She was able to plant that seed and really grow it from there.
We need to be holding ourselves accountable, us as tauira. If we miss our karo, oh well, he akoranga tēnei. Doesn't mean that they're trying to potu tangata or potu wairua. You know, it's accountability. Say, hey, I need to work on that. Whānau!
I do know from kōrero passed down that koro mitamohi and them from Makoia, they used to come back through here in the 80s and 90s, so close to like 40 years ago. And then now with me coming down here, I'm sort of starting the resurgence again of Mauraka. Colonisation played a big part in obliterating our reo, trying to obliterate our tikanga, trying to obliterate our traditional and sacred customs that we've done here. And so we're starting to see our whānau change their focus and change their lens from a Pākehā worldview to a Māori lens and a Māori worldview. A lot of our rangatahi growing up in these kaupapa, it really, really helps them. Some of the struggles that I may have had will never be the struggles that they would have had. I'm happy for that, and I'm also happy that our rangatahi are thriving in this kaupapa because they're the ones who are going to take it further than what we've done. Anytime I see our rangatahi succeeding well in anything te ao Māori, it's a beautiful sight.
When the unfulfilled promises of the Nelson Tenths cut Māori and Motueka off from their lands, it created a cultural deficit that was felt for many generations. Today, Te Āwhina Marae is decades deep into a journey to reconnect whānau to traditional practices. Te Aratoki is the longest continuously occupied whare whakairo in Aotearoa. Set up by Master Carver John Mutu more than 30 years ago, the dedication to toi Māori came from the tikanga, I teach you, you teach many.
Part of the project with Whare Whakairo, it's a revitalisation project of toi Māori. And part of that toi Māori revitalisation across Te Tauihu, the first step is that we needed a place that was fit for purpose. We also needed a community around it, otherwise it would have just been a building by itself. And this is where Te Aratoki came.
You remember how to do that bit? No, I was going to guess it. Well, yeah, hollow. Huh? So hollow out from about halfway to that halfway mark. Roll it over and hollow it at the same time, and then take that nose in. I sort of took a turn left in life and sort of went down a bit of a colourful road. I got myself in a lot of trouble, to tell you the truth. Met up with a fella that helped me out. He was doing mahi whakairo. Yeah, I think it was 12 years ago now. He put a chisel into my hand. change of the tide for me. Because I've grown up all my life in Otaki, I still had a stigma about me. My partner actually one day said to me, should we move to Nelson? And I didn't hesitate, really. I shared my passion for carving, and then they invited me in to meet the master carver here that was on the marae. At the time when I turned up, there was mātauranga waka working here and looking after the pai. You know, there wasn't that element, if you ain't from here, you're not welcome. Just the welcoming from the mana whenua here in Motueka and from Te Āwhina Marae never even made you feel like an outsider. This is for, I think it was iwi land along the river. Fulton Hogan had taken over and made it into a quarry. So this is the kaitiaki that's going on there. Here, this is para whenua mea. My master carver decided to go over one school holidays to visit his mokopuna, and he never come back. It was time to be a koro, I suppose. Do that neck first, after you do that. So I had to step up a little bit and hold the fort for Te Aratoki. It's a life lesson teacher. Everything that I've learnt through whakaaro, I can adapt to life. Patience, determination, focus. You know, definitely mahi whakaaro as a rongoa.
Toi Māori, the soul of Māori expression, is experiencing a cultural revival in Te Tau Ihu, connecting the threads of history with the present.
One of my earliest memories of my dad was sitting on his lap with his hands around mine, scraping away. I mean, I probably thought I was carving, but he was doing all the work. Dad and I would be out in the forge on rainy days, making stone carving chisels and modifying tomahawks and the such like. I was 9, 10, so I wanted to make swords and various things. I don't have any whakapapa connection to this little hair that I know of. I didn't really start to make connections with local iwi until I started with the Taurapa project. So council had put out for expressions of interest for a sculpture design. All of this is reclaimed land, and all of this, much like Tahuna Beach, was just they just dumped rubbish to get rid of the swamp. It was intended to commemorate the waka landing site and also commemorate migration as it applies to all people. The placement of the taurapa was very intentional to harness and reinforce the wairua of the awa. It was an interesting thing to work on and just sort of try and imagine because of that size, you know. So those uprights, there's 8 of them that represent the local iwi. So this is the new library renovation there. And we've got some work going on the posts at the front with lights backlit, some designs on the concrete and on the glass. Looking at the opportunities that were available, I just tried to really own the whole foyer space because it's sort of that transition into their puna or mātauranga.
Oh yeah. Remember we're looking at the infill. So for those of you that were here, remember that these 2 pieces of paper have some examples of how you can infill the kōwhaiwhai. All right? And so it's about having a practice.
The staff at Nayland approached me to add some toi Māori to a new building. So the first step in that process was to engage with mana whenua to ensure that the process was happening in a way they were happy to be represented, and one that would connect the students and the school community with the stories of the mana whenua Aotearoa. Ngāti Koata sent in some representatives to share pūrākau. So the kids have produced their own kōwhaiwhai, referencing to the pūrākau, using the designs, and then looking to have them sandblasted onto some rākau. This was just a test piece of the sandblasting. We soon had a plan about re-indigenising the whole school, as well as providing a link for ākonga to access the world of Toi Māori. This is one of the kōwhaiwhai that I designed for the kura. So this design is about the school, it's about the students and the journey of life. Kia ora mātua. I haven't seen it for a couple of weeks.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. They're really inviting mātauranga into their education space, not just for the benefit of the Māori students, but for all the students, because there is a wisdom within mātauranga Māori that applies to all people. It's a really great thing for the community. When somebody experiences a positive experience, it's impossible to calculate how much influence that has on what comes next. We just know that the trajectory has changed for the better, and it really feels like there's a lot of initiatives locally that are working in that direction.
Toi Māori, once at risk of fading into silence, now flourishes here in Te Tauihu. But beyond aesthetics, it is also a form of resistance, helping preserve and revitalise Māori culture. A way of saying, we are still here.
We just opened the art gallery on Monday. Awesome. That is a demonstration of the confidence now that we have to extend our mahi toi out into the wider community. And Roni has been driving on that to get over the line.
Come on, come around, come around.
Karo behind it was to educate other people around here, educate them in our arts.
What I do here is I'm a rongoa Māori practitioner, doing miri, romi, lomi. So I make my own oils, my own balms, my own lotions and potions, do some hexes. We all come with our strengths, we all come with our tupuna mahi, and it's having that under one umbrella in one space where people can come and get everything. It's an all one-stop shop, hence the name Taonga Tuku Iho.
A big thing is, with all this new technology that's coming out, we still want to hold our traditional patterns, our traditional knowledge and traditional flow that still runs through it, so it doesn't get overtaken by something that just looks good. Down at Te Aratuki at the Marae, in our spare time when we're not doing commission work, our students is making things, and we had no really outlet to sell them. Part of a vision for this place is to help the marae be self-sustainable in our mahi toi. It's about educating our outside world of our arts, and as well trying to inspire the next generation to be able to do this as well, to follow the passion that you like and make it into your reality.
Mahi toi, it's actually a status of exceptional skills, knowledge, and that practice is really important to keep that mana, so that we are no longer the trinkets at the flea market. We're the fine arts in the museum. So it's where I would like it to end up.